Unknown. Surge. The courtroom felt like a pressure cooker ready to explode. The air crackled with tension. Dim lighting buzzed softly above, casting long shadows on the scuffed wooden floor. Pale rectangles of sunlight slipped through dusty windows, slanting across the room like silent observers. Marina Sergeyevna Polyakova, a slim woman in her early 30s, sat at the defendant's table. She tried to hold herself upright, but her trembling shoulders and clenched pale fingers on the bench gave her away. A bead of sweat traced down her temple, leaving a cold trail across her cheek. Presiding above the room was Judge Oleg Ivanovich Rudenko. His face flushed a furious red, eyes narrowed under thick brows. He gripped the wooden gavel in one hand, his knuckles white, tapping it rhythmically against the edge of his desk, as though keeping time with his own rising fury. Behind him, a state emblem of the double-headed eagle loomed over the wall, a silent, symbolic witness to the unfolding storm. To the left sat the prosecutor, flipping through documents with calculated calm. To the right, Marina's lawyer, a thin, bespectacled man, fidgeted nervously, dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief. Two bailiffs stood by the doors like silent guards, their eyes flicking across the room. A scattering of journalists and observers sat at the back, watching with growing unease. Marina was on trial for allegedly setting fire to a warehouse, which had led to the death of a security guard. She denied the charges, claiming she'd been framed, but few seemed interested in her side of the story. From the start, it felt like Judge Rudenko had already made up his mind, and now, as she sat there under his withering glare, it was clear he intended to break her spirit. You have no right to speak! Judge Rudenko bellowed suddenly, voice slicing through the silence. You were not given the floor, defendant. Marina flinched, lips parting in a failed attempt to speak. Her lawyer tried to rise in her defense. Your Honor, she was simply trying to clarify. Sit down, counselor, the judge roared, slamming the gavel down hard. This court is under my control, not yours. I will not tolerate outbursts. The lawyer sank back into his seat, defeated. Marina bit her lip, her heart thudding painfully. She cast a glance toward the public benches. Her younger sister, Olesha, clutched a purse tightly in her lap, eyes wide and filled with fear. Marina tried to reassure her with a faint smile, but before her lips could even curve, another thunderous bang silenced the room. Bang! You will not defy me again, Rudenko said in a low, dangerous growl. One more outburst, and I will have you removed from this courtroom. Do you understand me, Polyakova? Tears stung Marina's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She clung to the edge of the bench, knuckles white, forcing herself not to break. Deep inside her, something was building, a pressure that mirrored the storm gathering in Rudenko's eyes. He wasn't just trying to control the courtroom, he wanted to crush her completely. She rose to her feet. The wooden bench groaned beneath her as she stood. Her legs shook, but she stood tall, forcing herself not to cower. Your Honor, she began, her voice trembling but clear. I understand your position, but I have the right to speak. I only ask... What? The judge shouted, his eyes bulging. You dare speak again? He shot to his feet, knocking over his chair. The crash echoed through the courtroom like a gunshot. You dare challenge the authority of this court? He screamed, spit flying from his lips. You accuse me of being unfair? Marina's lawyer jumped up again. Your Honor, please! Silence! Rudenko bellowed, pointing a trembling finger at him. You're next if you don't sit down. The bailiff stiffened, unsure whether to intervene. Marina stood frozen, torn between the instinct to flee and the fire of injustice blazing in her chest. I only want a fair trial, she said quietly, her voice nearly breaking. Isn't that what this court is for? The judge's lips curled into a snarl. You insolent, he growled. I'll teach you what fairness means. He stormed down the steps from the bench, gavel still clutched in his fist. Judge Rudenko descended the steps of the bench with slow, deliberate menace, his black robe billowing behind him like a storm cloud. His breathing was ragged. The wooden gavel clenched in his fist creaked under pressure. He stopped just a few feet from Marina. You think this court is a game? He thundered, eyes wild. You think you can insult a judge and walk away? Marina's legs locked in place. She could feel the weight of every eye in the courtroom. The spectators, the bailiffs, the prosecutor, all frozen. Her lawyer instinctively stepped in front of her. Your Honor, I implore you, get out of my way, Rudenko roared, shoving the lawyer back with a rough hand. Papers scattered. The lawyer stumbled, catching himself against a bench. Marina recoiled in shock, her hands raised instinctively to protect her face, and then, "Stop it!" The cry came from the gallery. Olicia. She had jumped to her feet, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. You can't do this, she shouted, trembling but fierce. You're a judge, not a monster. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Rudenko turned his burning gaze toward her. You dare speak in my courtroom? He howled. Bailiffs, remove her, now! The bailiffs hesitated. One looked to the other, but duty took over, and they began to move toward Olicia. She didn't resist as they reached her. Her voice rose louder. You should be the one removed. You're not fit to wear that robe. Rudenko spun back toward Marina, red-faced and shaking. And you, he bellowed, you'll regret, ever... He raised the gavel high above his shoulder. Marina flinched back, covering her head. But the blow never came. One of the bailiffs had leapt forward, grabbing the judge's wrist mid-swing. Another lunged and wrapped an arm around Rudenko's chest, pulling him backward. That's enough, the first bailiff barked. Let me go, Rudenko roared. He struggled violently, his robe whipping around him like tattered sails. She accused me of injustice. His voice cracked. Marina, trembling, lowered her arms. The gavel clattered to the floor. Her lawyer rushed back to her side, kneeling beside her. It's over, he whispered. He's done. It's over. In the chaos, the main courtroom doors burst open. Chairman Ivan Petrovich, the head judge, strode in, flanked by a secretary and another bailiff. His face was thunder. What in God's name is happening here? The room fell into stunned silence. Rudenko, panting, turned to face his superior. Sweat poured down his face. Bailiff, explain. The younger guard stepped forward. Sir, Judge Rudenko attempted to strike the defendant. We restrained him. Gasps again. The journalist in the back had her camera rolling now, her hands shaking. Ivan Petrovich's gaze fell on Rudenko, and the room felt like it stopped breathing. You are relieved of duty, effective immediately. Rudenko's eyes widened. His mouth opened, but no words came. He staggered backward, collapsing onto a bench like a puppet with its strings cut. His gavel still lay on the floor, forgotten. Take him to chambers, Ivan said coldly. Now, The bailiffs gently but firmly lifted Rudenko to his feet. He didn't resist. As they led him away, he turned toward Marina, eyes hollow. His voice was barely audible. Forgive me. She didn't respond. The courtroom was a mess of scattered papers, overturned chairs, and stunned silence. Judge Rudenko was gone, escorted through the side door by the bailiffs. His black robe trailed behind him like a discarded shadow. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Marina remained standing near her table, barely aware of the trembling in her hands. Her lawyer supported her by the elbow, murmuring softly, "Sit. You're safe now." His voice was gentle, but she heard it through a wall of static, as if underwater. She sank slowly into her chair, legs refusing to hold her. Her vision blurred from tears she hadn't realized were falling. Her entire body pulsed with the aftermath of adrenaline. Ivan Petrovich, the head judge, turned to address the room. "This hearing is suspended until further notice. There will be an investigation. All present are dismissed." There was no gavel, no dramatic bang, just quiet authority. The kind the courtroom had forgotten existed. One by one, people began to shuffle out. Journalists whispered urgently, scribbling notes, some rushing outside to file reports. The prosecutor lingered awkwardly, clearly unsure of what he should do. Marina's lawyer quietly began gathering the scattered documents from the floor. From the rear door, Olesia reappeared, eyes puffy but defiant. She rushed down the aisle and threw her arms around her sister. "I thought he was going to hit you," she whispered. Marina nodded, her chin trembling as she finally allowed herself to collapse into Olesia's embrace. "I thought so too." They stayed like that for a while. Two sisters, holding on to each other while the wreckage of a corrupt man's power lay around them. Outside, the rain had started. It wasn't a heavy storm, just a cold, steady drizzle, a cleansing wash over the stone columns of the courthouse. Reporters waited near the doors, hungry for statements. Cameras flashed the second Marina stepped into view, supported by her lawyer and flanked by Olesia. A journalist thrust a mic forward. "Marina, how do you feel after the judge's outburst?" Her lawyer held up a hand, shielding her. "No comment. My client is in shock." "But do you plan to press charges?" another reporter shouted. Marina paused. She turned slowly, her expression blank, but her eyes sharp. "I just wanted a fair trial," she said quietly. "That's all I asked." Then she turned and stepped into the waiting car. Back at home. The apartment was small and quiet. Familiar. Safe. Olesia made tea while Marina sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. The adrenaline was gone, but her hand still shook as she tried to lift the cup. "You were brave," Olesia said softly. "Even when I couldn't breathe, you stood up to him." Marina gave a tired laugh. "I was terrified." "Exactly, that's what made it brave." Marina stared into her tea for a long moment. "I wonder if he even realized what he became," she murmured. "He thought he was the law, but he was just angry." "And now?" Olesia asked. Marina looked up. "Now I wait for the process to start again, with a new judge, new trial, new chance." She leaned back and closed her eyes. But this time, I won't be afraid to speak. Weeks passed. The initial shock of what had happened in Judge Rudenko's courtroom became national news. Video clips of him lunging at Marina, the bailiffs intervening, Olesia's voice ringing out. All of it went viral. Talk shows debated the state of the justice system. Like, comment sections exploded. Hashtags appeared. Justice, for Marina, Uriah's judges are not gods. Dies, courtroom terror. Some called Marina a hero. Others questioned how long that judge had been abusing power unnoticed, but Marina, she just wanted to breathe. She stayed mostly out of the spotlight, letting her lawyer speak for her. But the image of her standing tall while a judge lost his mind struck a chord. Her face became a symbol, not of rebellion, but of quiet resistance. When the notification came that her case would be reopened under a new judge, she simply nodded. "I'm ready," she said, back in court. But not the same. The new courtroom was brighter, cleaner, the walls freshly painted. It didn't smell of fear. The judge was a woman this time, Elena Nikolaevna, with silver hair tied in a tight bun and eyes that gave nothing away. She spoke with calm clarity, each word weighed and deliberate. "This court will proceed with impartiality. Any form of intimidation, disrespect, or misconduct will not be tolerated from anyone." It was not just words, you could feel the difference. Marina sat with her lawyer, Olesia, behind her. Supporters now filled half the gallery, quiet, respectful, but present. A few held signs, "Let her be heard." This time, Marina wasn't a shadow on a bench. She was a presence, not loud, not fiery, but rooted. When she stood to speak, the room listened. Her voice. "I didn't set that fire," Marina said, "and I won't confess to something I didn't do, no matter how hard someone tries to force it from me." Her voice was clear, controlled. "I was at the wrong place. I made mistakes, but I did not kill anyone." She looked straight at the judge, not with fear, with trust. "I ask only for one thing, that my truth be heard." There was a silence after she finished, not the kind laced with tension, but the kind that acknowledges gravity. Her words hung in the air like something sacred. The new judge nodded once. "You will be heard." The outcome. Over the next few weeks, evidence once dismissed was allowed. Witnesses were re-questioned, surveillance footage was reviewed more carefully, forensic reports were re-examined, and slowly, a different story emerged. Not of guilt, like of negligence by investigators, of overlooked timelines, of bias, and eventually of exoneration. When the day came and the judge spoke the words, "The court finds the defendant not guilty," Marina felt her knees weaken. Olesha caught her in a hug before she could fall. The crowd behind them clapped quietly, not the raucous kind of victory, but the relieved kind. The kind that means it's over. Final scene, on her own terms. Months later, Marina stood on a small stage in a community hall, addressing a group of students studying law. She had been invited to speak, not as a defendant, not as a victim, but as a survivor of the system and someone who chose not to be silent. She wore simple clothes, no makeup, just her truth. "If you ever become judges," she said, "remember this. Your power is not your own. It's borrowed, given to you by people who trust you to wield it with care. The moment you use it to punish instead of protect, you've betrayed that trust." She paused. "And if you're ever on the other side of the bench, just don't be afraid to speak. Even when your voice shakes." Especially then. A long, quiet applause followed. She stepped off the stage and into the cool evening. Rain had just stopped, and the street shimmered with light. Olesia waited outside, leaning against the car, arms crossed, smiling proudly. "See?" she said. "Told you, you'd be amazing." Marina looked up at the sky, now clear, calm. A single star twinkled above the courthouse across the street. She smiled. "I'm not afraid anymore." And this time she meant it.